So, hello guys. This is the simple way to cut without losing muscle. Uh, there's no magic secret to this. Anyone telling you otherwise, they're just trying to get something from you. Most of the time, they're trying to get your money from telling you to buy their coaching or buy their courses, or they're trying to say outlandish stuff to trick you into engaging with their content, which they also benefit from. But I'm not trying to do any of that because that is not helpful to anyone. So I'm gonna break this down simply, make things easy for you guys. Let's get into it. So first, I'm gonna cover the basics of cutting, and I'll talk about what's actually happening inside your body as well when you cut. And I'm also going to be covering what makes an unsustainable cut and what makes a sustainable cut, because we aren't trying to get to the end of week one and already be struggling, because that happens pretty often, and we don't want that. So we're trying to play the long game here. No crash dieting, because crash dieting's just going to cause you to rebound. So gonna avoid that. We're trying to look our best while also keeping all that progress from our bulk. So gonna be losing minimal amounts of muscle during this, and also keeping as much strength as possible, because no one likes to take the ego hit of losing strength, and it's surprisingly easy to keep your strength while cutting. Now, the key component, or what cutting even actually is a sustained calorie deficit. That means eating fewer calories than you're expending. Now, people think that you have to strictly stick to a specific daily deficit, but actually, the better way to look at it is a weekly deficit. That way, if certain circumstances come up that just don't let you stick to your goal for the day, then you can make up for it by spreading it out across the rest of the week instead, so you don't gotta panic. So, say your goal is a 500 calorie deficit a day, but one day you can only do a 100 calorie deficit. Well, then instead you can do 600 calories over 4 days to make up for that loss. So the weekly deficit is still the same, still 3,500. So don't panic if there's a day that you can't reach that. Just take the wider view of a weekly deficit. So what actually happens inside your body during a cut? This is just some extra information, but so how are you actually losing the fat? Well, when you consume fewer calories than you need, your body's gonna detect that dip in blood glucose levels, and then it turns to your fat stores for energy. This process is called lipolysis. You don't need to know this, um, but basically, fats get broken down into fatty acids and glycerol, and then through a few different metabolic pathways, produce glucose, which is what your body runs on. Now, glucose isn't the only form of energy your body uses. You also get ketones, which your brain actually functions better on, but that's a whole other thing you really don't need to get into. So, what makes an unsustainable cut? Well, I am quite the expert on unsustainable cutting. Um, I have taken many awful approaches to cuts, uh, and because of that, I came up with four key things that I found typically causes like 90% of cuts to fail. So avoid avoid these things. The first thing is going to be extreme deficits. Extreme deficits are almost always going to be unsustainable because you're pretty much just going to feel awful all the time, um, for quite a few reasons. The first thing is extreme deficits are going to really mess with your sleep, and when your sleep's bad, you're not going to be able to recover very well. You're also going to be tired all the time, and you're probably going to be in a bad mood, so you're just going to be annoying to everyone else around you. I've been there many times. Um, and you're probably going to lose motivation to continue cutting. It's also going to make it a lot harder to ignore impulsive signals, which are going to cause you to well, end up binge eating and eating things you shouldn't be eating. So now also what happens a lot of the time with people doing extreme deficits is they reach their goal, they reach it fast, but they never actually learned how to sustain that body weight and the lifestyle required to sustain that goal. And as a result, they just go back to their old ways of eating and they put all the weight back on, which is not what we want to happen, okay? We save the weight gain for bulking, okay? So I do actually recommend when you get to the end of your cut to just maintain for a good few months rather than going straight to bulking. The next thing is eating bland foods. Now, we are not living in North Korea. This is not a punishment to yourself. You don't have to eat like you're in prison. So, season your food. Um, Eat foods you actually like, but do try to avoid like sauces and creams and stuff like that because people typically don't accurately track those things or just forget to and end up eating a lot more calories than they think. But you don't need to be eating meals like on the right. Okay, I've done that before. It didn't last very long. You kind of just want to kill yourself after a while. There's so many options and meals out there that are low calories and still taste good. So make sure to utilize those spices. And also, if you do want sauces, then look for the low calorie versions. But still be careful about those because a lot of the time they'll say stuff like 0 calorie per serving, which it's actually just rounded down calories because they're allowed to do that. And then when you look at the serving, it's like 1 gram is a serving, when in reality you use like 100 grams of it. So you end up like, say it's like zero point 0.7 calories per gram. You end up eating 70 calories when you thought you were eating zero, which very much adds up because say you're doing that for like 4 meals a day, that's what, 280 extra calories that you didn't know you were eating. So those add up. So try to avoid those. Um, the next thing that makes unsustainable cutting is overtraining. Now, we don't want to be pushing the same degree of training that we do when bulking because you're just gonna feel horrendously lethargic. You're not gonna be able to recover, and most likely it's gonna cause you to lose more muscle because you're gonna find yourself skipping sessions to try and overcompensate, which we don't want. We want consistency because consistency is going to tell your body that it needs to hold on to muscle because you're still regularly requiring it. Like if you really overtrain one day and then you have to take like multiple days off, well that's multiple days for your body to go, we don't need this. We don't need this. Let's shave some of this. And the final fourth thing for unsustainable cutting is incomplete nutrients. Now, if you're tracking your food for the day and it's looking like the tracking on the left, then your body just isn't gonna have what it needs to help make sure you feel good. People really overlook how big a difference hitting your vitamins and minerals is gonna make to your recovery and just how you feel on a cut. I mean, I've done cuts where all I looked at was just my protein, carbs, and fats, and I've done cuts where I looked at everything, and I can tell you for a fact that if you eat properly, there's a good chance you're not even gonna feel like you're cutting, um, because your energy levels are gonna be much better, your recovery is gonna be better, your body is gonna have what it needs to produce all those hormones, all those neurotransmitters, everything. Now, also for vegetarians and vegans, you want to make sure you're eating foods with complete amino acid profiles. So there's 9 essential amino acids, and what that means is there's 9 amino acids that your body can't produce on its own. So your only way of getting those is through your diet. Now, in case you don't know what amino acids are, they're the building blocks for proteins. That's what your body uses to make protein, uh, which ultimately becomes muscle, and various other things like enzymes and whatnot. But for what we're talking about, the main thing is supporting muscles, stop them from breaking down. Uh, the most important amino acid, like essential amino acid for building muscle, is leucine, and a lot of plant foods are missing that or just don't have it in sufficient quantity. So you gotta do your research if you're vegetarian and vegan. But if you're not vegetarian and vegan, typically that's just not going to be an issue. So what makes a sustainable cut then? Because we know what makes an unsustainable cut. Um, well, it's basically the opposite of what makes an unsustainable cut. So the first thing is reasonable deficits. Uh, as it says here, something like 300 to 600 calories a day deficit is typically what's most sustainable for the majority of people, uh, to stop yourself from being in a situation where you have to either compromise on nutrients that you need or where you just feel awful all the time. So, as I said before, now I prefer to look at a weekly deficit. That way, it means you're just not stressing out if you can't hit your goal for a specific day. And it also means that when you're checking your weight, you're less likely to fall into the trap of being worried that your weight isn't going down every day, because some days your weight is going to go up and down. It just depends on like how much water you're holding, glycogen stores, things like that. But if you take the weekly view approach, then you can just focus on the progress on a weekly basis, which, if you're doing things right, is going to be a continuous trend downwards. So, but also make sure you adjust your deficit to your weight loss, because as you lose weight, the amount of calories that you require is also going to go down. So, as a result, you're going to have to adjust your calories. You know, you're not going to be needing the same amount of calories as like if you're 100 kilos versus 90 kilo body weight. You know, there's going to be a difference there. Now, another factor is your food selection and timing. So, like I said earlier, eat foods you actually like. Eating foods you don't like is just never sustainable. But I don't mean go eating donuts and ice cream though. Um, but just don't force yourself to eat stuff you don't like. Like if you don't like tomatoes, then don't make yourself eat tomatoes just because it helps you hit your macros. Like, that's just stupid. Um, Obviously, not everyone's gonna like all the same foods, so it's like, yeah, just don't force yourself. Uh, but also, what I will note is that as you lose body fat, your palate does actually start to change. You're gonna find that you might start liking foods you otherwise found like pretty bland or just didn't like. So definitely do keep experimenting, because varied diets are also gonna help support diverse gut microbiome, which will contribute to you feeling a lot better mentally and just your digestion functioning properly, because your digestion is incredibly important um, for just long-term health. Because a lot of people don't realize that things like serotonin can be produced in pretty large quantities in the gut. So the foods you eat like genuinely do help support like how you feel. They support the production of hormones, and they're gonna help you feel much better mentally while cutting, which is a big component to sustainable cutting, because you don't want to be feeling bad. You don't want to be feeling flat. That just isn't helpful to long term cutting. Now, another thing is eating satiating foods. Try to avoid quick carbs, like sweets. Just no, no. I think everyone knows, try and avoid sweets when you're cutting. It's not going to help. But quick carbs, avoid, and just foods that pass through your system quickly, because they're often going to make you feel hungrier rather than fuller. So you want to make sure you're eating slow digesting carbs and eating high protein, because both of those things are going to make you feel fuller, which is the aim. Uh, and also eat high fiber meals. They're important for overall health anyways. That's going to help reduce risk of cancers and stuff. So you should be doing that anyways, really, which is something I know a lot of people don't do now. That's quite a big lacking in our world now. Now, for timing, I like to eat smaller, more frequent meals. I understand that this can be hard for some people, especially people that are at work during the day. So obviously work this around your personal schedule. But the smaller you can break your meals down into, the more stable you're gonna feel throughout the day, which is a big plus to avoiding, big crashes and like impulsive eating. The final thing for timing is I tend to like eating the majority of my calories later in the day. The reason for that is that it's gonna help make sure your sleep quality doesn't drop so drastically, because it sucks when you're trying to sleep and you find yourself hungry but you got no calories left to eat that day. So eating the majority of your calories later in the day can help to mitigate that. Obviously not like right before bedtime, because that can also mess with your sleep, but it's it's gonna reduce the risk of you just impulsively snacking when you shouldn't, because most of the time off diet snacking gets done later in the day when you're more fatigued and your brain's tired. So yeah, providing your body with the calories later in the day can help avoid that. Um, the final thing for sustainable cutting is the opposite of what I mentioned earlier, making sure you hit as many nutrients as you possibly can. Uh, and I understand that that can be pretty hard while cutting, so don't feel guilty if you want to throw in multivitamins and minerals like this. Uh, I'm not sponsored, but the complete multivitamin complex from Bulk is really good, and also get some super strength omega-3s. They're also very good. These, well, EPA and DHA help support your brain. It's kind of what your brain's made of in a way. So those help support brain function. But as long as you're not using those to like replace a healthy diet though, because you're going to be missing out on things like fiber and gut bacteria. So use them if necessary, or actually just use them anyway, but like try to avoid using it as a replacement, obviously. Uh, Another key part of this is don't be afraid to eat fats. Like a lot of people try and just cut fat as close to zero as possible, but that's just gonna cause you to feel really fatigued, because your body uses fat to produce hormones like testosterone, which is going to be essential for supporting your energy levels and maintaining your muscle, which is what we're trying to do with this approach. But obviously, don't overeat on them either. Uh, if you use chronometer, then it should do a good job at guiding you on how much you should be eating. So now, whoops. Now for the training. Maintaining muscle mass actually requires a lot less work than growing it. Uh, in practice, it tends to require about half the amount of work, but we're not just trying to maintain muscle mass, but also our strength. So how you're going to go about doing that is that you want to continue using the same weight for your working sets for as long as you can. Obviously, eventually you're going to lose some strength, but a lot less strength than you'd think. So you're going to want to lower the volume that you're doing. Say you do like 4 sets for an exercise, which you shouldn't really be doing anyways. That's a bit too much, but that's for another video. But say you're doing 4, then you want to do 2 sets instead, but just maintain the top working set weight, and you'll actually be really surprised just how much strength you can keep by the end of your cut. Like, you can get pretty damn lean while maintaining a lot of your strength, which is gonna help avoid that ego hit that we all get after a cut, where we got a bit too weak and now we're scared that people think we're pussy. So yeah, the training style is actually pretty simple. People always try and overcomplicate training, but just as long as you keep consistent and avoid doing huge amounts of volume, then you'll be fine. The reason for decreasing the volume is just because increasing volume typically causes a larger energy expenditure than like increasing weight does, which isn't ideal when you're already limiting your energy consumption during a cut. So now, for a big issue that a lot of people do face, what if you're constantly hungry? Well, there's a few things that you can do for this. The main thing is going to be reducing your deficit. So instead of being in like a 600 calorie deficit, try 400 or 300. It is going to increase how long your cut takes, but again, if you're serious about this stuff, then you got to take a long-term approach. Trying to cut corners with weight loss or really anything almost never works long term. So if you crash diet, then most people are just gonna put all that weight back on afterwards, and then you went through all that pain for nothing. But another thing you can do, which is what I like to do, is increase my calories but also increase my cardio to compensate. So I've done cuts where I've done like 2 hours of cardio a day, which is absolutely not necessary, by the way. 30 to like 45 minutes a few times a week or every day is more than enough. But when I was doing that, I was able to eat like 3,000 calories a day and still be in like a 700, 800 calorie deficit. So I could basically eat how I did while bulking, but I never struggled with hunger because I was just full all the time. Um, Also, you just get the added benefit of cardio, which is particularly important for people taking gear because cardio is going to help keep your HDL and LDL where they should be. But there's a misconception that cardio is going to kill your gains. As long as you don't do more than like an hour straight after working out, like 30 to 45 minutes is fine. It's not going to do anything. Certainly nothing noticeable. The only time I'd maybe avoid it is like if you train legs, then maybe don't cycle right after. Um, that can have a little bit of effect, but it's really it's not noticeable. Um, Also, you probably need to reevaluate your food selection. There's a pretty high likelihood that if you've tried reducing your deficit or increasing the calories and the cardio and you're still feeling hungry, then you're probably not making great choices on food selection. So, again, just make sure you're eating high protein, high fiber, and slower digesting carbs. Um, all those things are going to help you feel fuller throughout the day. And the final thing, if you have genuinely tried all three of those other things and you're just still ridiculously hungry, then it might be worth looking at the pharmacology route and using GLP-1s or using things like caffeine as well to try and reduce your appetite if you can handle caffeine. Obviously, I know some people can't, but I mean caffeine's useful for anyone cutting, really. Um, but there are people out there that just genetically have really high hunger drives, and it's not their fault. So, you know, if you've tried all those other things, then maybe do look into that. But do consult a doctor before doing that because I'm not a doctor. So they might not be suitable for you. Uh, and you need to know how to properly and safely use them because there's quite a big issue of people misusing them, like clavicular. What is that guy doing? I swear he's done like 20 milligrams Reta before. Most people use like two. But yeah, they can cause serious issues if you don't use them properly. Uh, but if you guys are interested, then I can make a video breaking down GLP-1s because I know they're becoming increasingly common. So I'd be more than happy to do that just as something that could be useful to quite a few people. But yeah, that is the breakdown on how to cut while maintaining your muscle. It's really not at all that complicated. Uh, I know a lot of people like to overcomplicate it, so I thought I'd just break it down simply. But if you've made it this far, then thank you very much for watching, and let me know what else you'd like me to talk about because I got a wealth of knowledge I can share with you guys. I can make pharmacology videos about gear and stuff like that as well, uh, but also just break down more intricate dieting and optimizing sleep and stuff for people that are just really looking to take things to the next level. But yeah, thank you for watching. Love you guys.